The morning sun cast long shadows across the courtyard of Buckingham Palace as Princess Charlotte walked with confident steps toward the main entrance. At 12 years old, she had already learned the delicate dance of royal protocol, but today, something felt different. The air seemed thicker, charged with an energy she couldn't quite place. Queen Camilla stood waiting in the grand hall, her posture rigid and expectant. She wore a deep purple dress that seemed to absorb the light around her, and her eyes held a coldness that made Charlotte's stomach tighten. Behind Camilla, several members of the royal staff stood in perfect formation, their faces masks of professional neutrality. Charlotte had been summoned for what Camilla called a lesson in proper royal conduct. The young princess had been making waves lately with her independent spirit and refusal to follow certain outdated traditions. Just last week, she had refused to curtsy to a visiting dignitary who had made inappropriate comments about her education. The week before, she had spoken out during a charity event about the importance of treating all people equally, regardless of their social status. As Charlotte approached, she could feel the weight of expectation pressing down on her shoulders. The marble floors echoed with each step, creating a rhythm that seemed to match her heartbeat. She knew what was expected of her. She knew that according to royal tradition, she should bow her head, lower her gaze, and show the deference that Camilla demanded as queen. But something deep inside Charlotte rebelled against the idea. She thought about her grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, who had always taught her that true respect came from actions, not empty gestures. She remembered her father's words about standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult. Most importantly, she thought about the young girls who looked up to her, who saw her as a symbol of what they could become. The moment arrived like a thunderclap. Camilla's voice cut through the silence, sharp and commanding. "Charlotte," she said, her tone leaving no room for misinterpretation. "You will show proper respect to your queen." The hall fell silent. Even the distant sounds of London traffic seemed to fade away. Charlotte could hear her own breathing, could feel the eyes of everyone in the room focused on her. The royal guards stood at attention, their red uniforms a stark contrast against the cream-colored walls. Their faces remained impassive, but Charlotte caught something in their eyes, a flicker of interest, perhaps even admiration. Charlotte lifted her chin slightly, her blue eyes meeting Camilla's directly. Her voice, when it came, was clear and steady, carrying the strength of conviction that surprised even herself. "I respect the crown," she said, her words echoing in the vast space. "But I will not bow to show respect that isn't earned through actions." The silence that followed was deafening. Camilla's face flushed red, her composure cracking like ice under pressure. The staff members exchanged glances, unsure of how to react to such an unprecedented moment. Some looked shocked, others seemed to hide smiles behind their professional masks. "How dare you?" Camilla whispered, her voice trembling with barely controlled rage. "I am your queen. You will show me the respect I am owed." Charlotte stood her ground, her small frame somehow seeming to fill the enormous space. "Respect is earned," she repeated, her voice growing stronger. "My grandmother earned respect. Through 60 years of service to her people, she earned it by putting duty before comfort, by standing with the nation through its darkest hours. She earned it by showing compassion to those who needed it most." The young princess paused, gathering her thoughts before continuing. "You want me to bow simply because of the title you wear. But a true queen leads by example. She inspires others through her actions, not her demands." Captain James Morrison, the head of the Royal Guard, felt something stir inside him that he hadn't experienced in his 20 years of service. He had sworn an oath to protect the royal family, but he had also sworn to uphold justice and honor. As he watched this brave young girl stand up for her principles, he began to question what those oaths truly meant. The other guards seemed to sense the shift in their captain's demeanor. They had all witnessed Charlotte's kindness over the years, how she remembered their names, asked about their families, and treated them as human beings rather than furniture. They had seen her genuine concern for others, her natural leadership qualities, and her unwavering moral compass. Camilla's voice rose to a shout that echoed through the hall. "Guards, Escort Princess Charlotte to her quarters immediately. She will remain there until she learns proper respect. The command hung in the air like a challenge. Captain Morrison felt every eye in the room turn toward him and his men. This was the moment that would define not just the next few minutes, but potentially the future of the monarchy itself. Charlotte turned to look at the guards, her eyes filled not with fear but with hope. She had always believed in the goodness of people, and she trusted that these men who had sworn to protect her would see the truth of the situation. The captain took a step forward, his boots clicking against the marble floor. His hand rested on the ceremonial sword at his side, not as a threat, but as a symbol of the oath he had taken. When he spoke, his voice was measured and respectful, but there was steel beneath the courtesy. "Your Majesty," he said, addressing Camilla but keeping his eyes on Charlotte. "Princess Charlotte has committed no crime. She has shown courage in standing by her convictions. As guardians of the royal family, our duty is to protect not just their physical safety, but their right to speak with honesty and integrity." Camilla's eyes widened in disbelief. "Captain Morrison, I gave you a direct order." The captain nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Majesty. But my highest oath is to the crown and to the principles it represents. Those principles include justice, honor, and the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. Princess Charlotte has done nothing wrong in speaking her truth." Behind him, the other guards stood a little straighter. They had found their courage in their captain's words, and one by one, they stepped forward to stand beside him. It wasn't a rebellion in the traditional sense. They remained respectful, professional, and disciplined, but their message was clear. They would not be party to the punishment of a child for having the courage to speak honestly. Charlotte felt tears prick at her eyes, not from sadness but from overwhelming gratitude. These men, who barely knew her personally, were willing to risk their careers to protect her right to stand by her principles. It was a lesson in true loyalty that she would carry with her for the rest of her life. The standoff continued for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Camilla's fury was palpable, her entire body trembling with rage. She had expected immediate compliance, the kind of unquestioning obedience that she believed her position demanded. Instead, she found herself facing a united front of guards who had chosen principle over protocol. "This is treason," she hissed, her voice barely audible but carrying the weight of absolute authority. "You are all finished. Your careers, your pensions, your futures, all of it is gone." Captain Morrison's response was immediate and unwavering. "Your Majesty, we serve the crown with honor. We have done nothing treasonous in protecting a member of the royal family from unjust treatment. Our consciences are clear." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Charlotte could feel the weight of history pressing down on the moment, understanding instinctively that what happened next would ripple through the monarchy for years to come. Just then, footsteps echoed from the corridor leading to the hall. Prince William appeared in the doorway, his face grave but his eyes alert as he took in the scene before him. He had heard the raised voices from his office and had come to investigate, not knowing that he was about to witness a moment that would define his daughter's character for the rest of her life. "What is happening here?" he asked, his voice carrying the authority of both a prince and a father. Charlotte turned toward her father, her face lighting up with relief and pride. "Papa," she said, her voice steady despite the emotional turmoil of the past few minutes. "I was asked to bow to show respect, but I chose to stand by what you and Grandmama taught me. That true respect comes from actions, not empty gestures." William's eyes moved from his daughter to Camilla, then to the guards who stood protectively around Charlotte. In that moment, he saw not just a family dispute, but a fundamental question about what kind of monarchy they wanted to represent going forward. The future king looked at his daughter with a mixture of pride and concern, knowing that her courage in this moment would shape not just her own destiny, but the future of the crown itself. Prince William stepped into the charged atmosphere of the Great Hall, his presence immediately shifting the dynamics of the confrontation. His eyes took in every detail. His daughter standing tall despite her young age, Queen Camilla's flushed face twisted with anger, and the royal guards positioned protectively around Charlotte. The scene told a story that needed no explanation. "Charlotte," William said gently, approaching his daughter with measured steps. "Tell me exactly what happened here." Charlotte looked up at her father, drawing strength from his calm presence. "Step-grandmother Camilla ordered me to bow to show respect. When I explained that I believe respect should be earned through actions, she became angry and ordered the guards to lock me in my quarters." William's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He had spent years navigating the delicate balance between tradition and progress within the royal family. He understood the importance of respect and protocol, but he also believed deeply in the values his mother had instilled in him. Values that Charlotte was now demonstrating with remarkable courage. Camilla stepped forward, her voice sharp with indignation. "William, your daughter has shown complete disrespect to the crown. She has refused a direct order from her queen, and these guards have committed insubordination by refusing to follow my commands." The prince turned to face his stepmother, his expression carefully controlled. "Camilla, Charlotte is 12 years old. She is learning what it means to be a member of this family, and part of that learning includes understanding the difference between blind obedience and principled action." "She is a princess," Camilla shot back. "She must learn her place." "Her place," William said quietly, "is as a future leader who will inherit the responsibility of serving the British people. That responsibility includes the courage to stand for what is right, even when it is difficult." Captain Morrison remained at attention, but his relief was evident. The arrival of Prince William had shifted the balance of power in the room, and he sensed that his decision to protect Charlotte had been vindicated. The other guards maintained their protective stance around the young princess, their loyalty now openly displayed. Charlotte stepped forward, her small hand slipping into her father's larger one. "Papa, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I was trying to honor what you and Grandmama taught me about what real leadership means." William squeezed his daughter's hand gently. "And you have honored those teachings magnificently," he said, quote, his voice filled with pride. "Your grandmother would be very proud of the young woman you are becoming." The mention of Queen Elizabeth seemed to deflate some of Camilla's anger, replacing it with something closer to uncertainty. She had always struggled with comparisons to the late Queen, knowing that she could never match the beloved monarch's legacy of service and dedication. "The Queen," William continued, addressing the room but looking directly at Camilla, "spent 70 years showing us that true authority comes not from demands for submission, but from earning the trust and respect of those we serve. She never had to demand respect because she earned it every single day through her actions." Charlotte felt a surge of confidence at her father's words. She had been right to stand by her principles, even when it had seemed like the entire weight of tradition was against her. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each guard in turn, silently thanking them for their courage in standing with her. "These guards," William said, gesturing toward Captain Morrison and his men, "have shown remarkable judgment today. They have demonstrated that their loyalty to the crown runs deeper than following orders blindly. They have shown that they understand the true meaning of their oath, to protect not just the physical safety of the royal family, but the principles that the monarchy represents." Captain Morrison stepped forward, his bearing proud but respectful. "Your Royal Highness, we serve with honor. Princess Charlotte has shown courage and integrity that reflects the best values of the crown. We could not in good conscience punish such qualities." The captain's words resonated through the hall, and William nodded approvingly. "Captain, you and your men have my gratitude. Today you have shown what it truly means to serve the crown with distinction." Camilla's face had grown pale as she realized that the situation had completely slipped from her control. She had expected immediate compliance, and instead had found herself facing a united front of opposition. "William," she said, her voice now carrying a note of desperation, "if we allow this kind of insubordination, where does it end? How can we maintain order and respect?" William considered her question carefully before responding. "Camilla, order and respect cannot be maintained through force or intimidation. They must be earned through consistent demonstration of the values we claim to represent. If we punish a child for showing courage and integrity, what message does that send about what we truly value?" Charlotte listened to her father's words with growing understanding. This moment was about much more than whether she would bow to Camilla. It was about defining what kind of royal family they would be going forward. Would they be one that demanded blind obedience, or one that encouraged thoughtful leadership? "I want to serve our people well when I'm older," Charlotte said, her voice clear and strong. "But I can't do that if I'm taught to follow orders without thinking about whether they're right or wrong. Grandmama always said that with privilege comes responsibility. The responsibility to think carefully about our actions, and to stand up for what we believe is right." Her words carried a wisdom that seemed far beyond her years, and even some of the staff members who had remained silent throughout the confrontation found themselves nodding in agreement. This young princess was demonstrating qualities of leadership that many adults struggled to display. Prince William felt a profound sense of pride in his daughter, mixed with a growing determination to ensure that her courage would not be punished but celebrated. He looked around the room, noting the faces of those present, understanding that this moment would be remembered and talked about for years to come. "Charlotte," he said, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder, "you have shown remarkable strength today. You have honored your grandmother's memory and the values she stood for. I want you to remember this moment always. Remember that doing what is right is sometimes difficult, but it is always worth it." But the young princess nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of her father's words. She had faced her first real test of character and had emerged stronger for it. The guards who had protected her, the father who had supported her, and even this confrontation itself, had all taught her valuable lessons about leadership, courage, and the true meaning of respect. Captain Morrison cleared his throat respectfully. "Your Royal Highness, if I may," he said to William, "Princess Charlotte has demonstrated qualities today that give me great hope for the future of the monarchy. She has shown that she understands the difference between authority that is imposed and authority that is earned." "Indeed, Captain," William replied. "And you and your men have shown that you understand the true meaning of service. Your loyalty to the principles of honor and justice does you credit." Camilla had remained silent during this exchange, her face cycling through emotions as she processed what had occurred. She had intended to assert her authority and instead had found herself witnessing a demonstration of leadership from a 12-year-old that put her own behavior to shame. "Perhaps," William said, addressing Camilla directly, "we could all benefit from reflecting on what has happened here today. Charlotte has shown us what principled leadership looks like. The guards have shown us what loyal service truly means. These are lessons we can all learn from." Charlotte felt a moment of sympathy for her step-grandmother, understanding instinctively that Camilla's anger came from a place of insecurity rather than malice. "I don't want to cause trouble," she said quietly. "I just want to be the kind of princess that Grandmama would be proud of." The simple honesty of her statement seemed to touch something in the room. Even Camilla's expression softened slightly, though she remained silent. The staff members who had witnessed the entire confrontation looked at Charlotte with new respect, seeing in her the qualities that had made Queen Elizabeth so beloved. As the tension in the room began to slowly dissipate, William realized that this moment had become a turning point, not just for Charlotte, but for the entire royal family. His daughter had shown that the future generation of royals would not be content to simply follow tradition blindly. They would think, question, and stand by their principles, even when it was difficult. The sound of footsteps in the corridor announced the arrival of more people, drawn by the unusual commotion in the great hall. William straightened, preparing to explain the situation to whoever was approaching, knowing that the story of this confrontation would soon spread throughout the palace and beyond. But as he looked at his daughter, standing tall and proud despite her youth, surrounded by guards who had chosen principle over protocol, he felt a deep sense of optimism about the future. Charlotte had proven today that she possessed the qualities necessary to lead with both strength and compassion, and that gave him hope for the monarchy's future in an ever-changing world. The footsteps approaching the great hall belonged to Princess Anne, who had heard whispers of an unusual situation from a concerned staff member. As she entered the room, her keen eyes immediately assessed the scene before her. Her nephew William standing protectively near his daughter, Camilla looking flustered and angry, and a group of royal guards positioned around young Charlotte in what was clearly a protective formation. "Good heavens," Anne said dryly. her voice cutting through the remaining tension. "What exactly has been happening here?" William stepped forward to explain, but Charlotte spoke first, her voice steady and clear. "Aunt Anne, I was asked to bow to show respect, but I chose to stand by the principles that Grandmama taught me. I believe respect should be earned through actions, not demanded through titles." Anne's eyebrows rose slightly, and a ghost of a smile played at the corners of her mouth. She had always admired her mother's ability to inspire genuine respect and loyalty, and she recognized those same principles in her young great-niece's words. "I see," Anne said thoughtfully. "And Captain Morrison, I assume you have some thoughts on this situation?" The captain stepped forward, maintaining his professional bearing. "Your Royal Highness," Princess Charlotte demonstrated remarkable courage and integrity. "We could not, in good conscience, follow orders that would punish such qualities. Our oath is to protect the royal family, including protecting their right to speak with honesty." Anne nodded slowly, her respect for the guards evident in her expression. She had spent decades in royal service and understood the delicate balance between duty and conscience that the guards had navigated today. "Charlotte," Anne said, approaching her great-niece with measured steps, "what you have done today takes considerable courage. Standing by one's principles when faced with pressure to compromise is never easy, especially for someone your age." Charlotte looked up at her great-aunt, feeling a mix of relief and gratitude. "I kept thinking about what Grandmama would do. She always said that true leadership means doing what is right, even when it's difficult. Your grandmother," Anne said, her voice filled with emotion, "would indeed be very proud of you today. She spent her entire life demonstrating that respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned through consistent service and dedication to one's duty." Camilla finally found her voice, though it trembled slightly. "Anne, surely you cannot support this kind of insubordination. If we allow children to question authority, where does it end?" Anne turned to face Camilla, her expression serious but not unkind. "Camilla, there is a profound difference between questioning authority and standing by one's moral principles. Charlotte has not shown disrespect to the crown. Quite the opposite. She has shown that she understands what the crown truly represents." The Princess Royal's words carried weight that came from decades of faithful service and unwavering dedication to duty. She had seen monarchies around the world struggle and fail when they lost touch with the values that gave them legitimacy in the first place. "The monarchy," Anne continued, "has survived for centuries, not because it demanded blind obedience, but because it earned the trust and respect of the people it serves. Charlotte has demonstrated today that she understands this fundamental truth." Captain Morrison felt a surge of validation hearing these words from Princess Anne, whose reputation for straight talk and principled service was legendary throughout the royal household. He and his men had taken a significant risk in standing with Charlotte, and having their actions endorsed by such a respected member of the royal family meant everything. Charlotte stepped forward, her young face serious as she addressed the room. "I want everyone to know that I never meant to cause trouble or show disrespect. I love our family and I want to serve our people well. But I also believe that if I'm going to be a good leader someday, I need to learn to think for myself and stand up for what I believe is right." Her words carried a maturity that impressed everyone present. Here was a 12-year-old who had thought deeply about leadership, responsibility, and the values that should guide her actions. It was exactly the kind of thoughtful approach that the monarchy needed in an era of rapid social change. William placed a protective arm around his daughter's shoulders. "What Charlotte has shown us today is that the next generation of royals will not be content to simply follow tradition without understanding the principles behind it. They will lead with both their hearts and their minds engaged. And that," Anne added firmly, "is exactly what this institution needs. The monarchy must evolve and adapt while staying true to its core values of service, duty, and integrity." Charlotte has demonstrated all three of those values today. The guards maintained their position around Charlotte, their message clear. They would continue to protect her right to stand by her principles. Captain Morrison had made a decision that would define his legacy, choosing conscience over convenience, and his men had followed his lead without hesitation. As the immediate crisis began to resolve, staff members who had witnessed the confrontation started to whisper among themselves. Word of Charlotte's courage and the guards' loyalty would spread quickly throughout the palace and beyond. This was the kind of story that would be told and retold, becoming part of the royal family's lore. Camilla remained silent, perhaps beginning to understand that her approach had been misguided. The respect she had tried to demand through authority would have been hollow compared to the genuine respect that Charlotte had earned through her courage and integrity. "I think," William said thoughtfully, "that this has been a valuable lesson for all of us. Charlotte has shown us what principled leadership looks like. Captain Morrison and his men have shown us what loyal service truly means, and we have all been reminded of the values that make the monarchy relevant and respected." Charlotte looked around the room at the faces surrounding her. Her father's proud expression, Aunt Anne's approving nod, the guards' respectful attention, and even Camilla's thoughtful silence. She understood that this moment had changed something fundamental about her place in the royal family and her understanding of what leadership meant. "Thank you," she said simply, addressing the guards directly. "Thank you for protecting my right to speak honestly. I will never forget your courage in standing with me today." Captain Morrison stepped forward and offered a formal bow to the young princess. "Your Royal Highness, it has been an honor to serve. You have shown us today what the monarchy can be at its best." The other guards followed their captain's example, each offering their respect to Charlotte not because it was demanded, but because it was genuinely felt. These were men who had dedicated their lives to royal service, and they recognized something special in this young princess, who had chosen principle over popularity. As the group began to disperse, Anne approached Charlotte one final time. "My dear," she said quietly, "what you have done today will be remembered long after we are all gone. You have shown that the values your grandmother stood for will live on in the next generation. That is perhaps the greatest gift you could give to her memory." Charlotte felt tears prick at her eyes, moved by her great-aunt's words. She had acted on instinct, following the principles that had been instilled in her since childhood. But now she understood the broader significance of her choice. Prince William watched with deep satisfaction as his daughter graciously thanked each person who had supported her. She was learning not just to stand by her principles, but to appreciate those who stood with her. These were the qualities that would make her an exceptional leader someday. The great hall slowly emptied as people returned to their duties, but the impact of what had occurred would ripple through the royal household for months to come. Charlotte had established herself not just as a princess, but as a leader with the courage to do what was right, even when it was difficult. Captain Morrison and his guards returned to their posts with a renewed sense of purpose. They had discovered that their oath to protect the royal family encompassed more than physical security. It included protecting the values and principles that made the monarchy worthy of respect. As Charlotte walked back to her quarters with her father, she reflected on the events of the morning. She had faced her first real test of character and had emerged stronger for it. More importantly, she had learned that standing by one's principles, while sometimes difficult, attracted the support of others who shared those same values. "Papa," she said as they walked through the palace corridors, "do you think Grandmama really would have been proud of what I did today?" William stopped and knelt down to meet his daughter's eyes. "Charlotte," he said with absolute conviction, "I have never been more certain of anything in my life. Your grandmother spent 70 years demonstrating exactly the kind of courage and integrity you showed today. She would not just be proud, she would be absolutely delighted to know that her legacy lives on in you." Charlotte smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace about her decision. She had honored her grandmother's memory, stood by her principles, and earned the respect of those around her through her actions rather than her title. It was, she realized, exactly the kind of princess and future queen she wanted to be. The story of Charlotte's stand would indeed spread far beyond the palace walls, inspiring young people around the world to stand by their principles even when faced with pressure to conform. It would become a defining moment not just in her own life, but in the evolution of the modern monarchy, a reminder that true leadership comes not from demanding respect, but from earning it through courage, integrity, and unwavering commitment to doing what is right.